And I really believe that the future of building is sustainable and create healthy, thriving spaces for people to live in. So I was dreaming about building this project when I was a little girl, and I used to play The Sims, which was my go-to. I always was building houses in Sims. So when this process started and we were challenged to design it ourselves, my only go-to was The Sims. So I started drawing this house in The Sims, and later on I learned to use SketchUp. Before we moved here, we lived in a huge house, and after a few months after moving in there, we figured out that that house was not really serving our lifestyle. What we wanted and what we were longing for was a lifestyle that was more about experiencing things instead of owning a lot of space, a lot of square meters, a lot of stuff. So we were searching for an alternative, and we found this place, which is a holiday park with 100 cabins, which changed in their purpose, so it now became a permanent residence. And we bought a really old cabin that was broken down, abandoned, and we really needed to tear it down in order to build something else. Hoppa! It led to this beautiful house which has way less square meters than our previous house, but then in return we get to experience a lot more because our mortgage is way lower. We have less stuff, we only have what we need. And if there's one thing that I learned throughout this process, is to find a house that suits your lifestyle instead of finding a house and then have to adjust your lifestyle to the house. Think about, what is the life that I want? Do I want to feel free? Then find a place that gives you that feeling. We took a lot of time to design the house because you hoped to build your dream house once. So every inch of the house, every square meter, every corner was thought through. And we also wanted to honor the outdoor space more than the indoor space, because when people build a new home, usually they tend to build a big building, but we wanted to create a more balanced way of building where nature gets more space instead of us humans taking in more space. So the garden is a little bit bigger than our house. We don't have excessive space that can accumulate more stuff. We really have to be mindful what we bring into the house. We worked with an architect, but we were giving the architect more input than the architect was giving us the input in the design process, which was a very interesting learning experience. And in the end, that allowed us to design our own home from scratch. And the design process took about 6 to 9 months. And then we applied for the permit. And that took about 9 months as well. And then it took us about 1.5 years to build the entire space. And in the building process, what usually happens in bigger building projects is that there's a lot of CO2 emission, a lot of unsustainable and toxic materials. And our focus was to do it differently. We really wanted to focus on sustainable, natural materials and create an environment that is not only beautiful and aesthetic, but also healthy when you live in it. So no toxins, only natural materials. Because when you sleep in it, when you walk around in it, when you work in it, you don't want to get exposed to anything that is toxic. For the wooden cladding, we chose plateau wood that grows within 30 years. What is special about it is because it's steamed, it becomes more durable, and we wrapped it around the house in the in and outside, which creates this seamless transition between the indoor and the outdoor. And it's a great alternative compared to tropical wood, for example, which has way more transportation and higher CO2 emission. Because the house is insulated with wood, which is ventilating, we also chose a material for the wall cladding, a natural clay plaster that is also ventilating. And that means that the walls can soak up moist or smells, which then ventilates outside as well, but also releases moist into the air. So that creates a very healthy indoor environment. We use the same principles for the outdoor plaster. So this is a material that is also ventilating, and it's the same kind of plaster that is also used on the White House in Washington. For the bathroom and the kitchen, we used a different kind of plaster, which is grinded stone, for example marble. And this marble is applied as a plaster, which is also very sustainable because it's usually made out of waste pieces from marble. And it creates this beautiful texture, which looks like concrete. We really had to be smart with our design in terms of how much things do we accumulate in our house. So we do have some storage, but everything is very efficient. We really wanted to limit our overconsumption, and I think there's so many beautiful secondhand pieces available out there that you can repurpose again. It doesn't necessarily mean that we are minimalists, because we try to be mindful about the things we bring into the house, but every piece has a story. So for example, the lamp is an old item from my father's photography studio, and the painting above the couch in the living room is an old piece from my grandmother and grandfather. So we really try to be super mindful about bringing in beautiful things that increase our living experience. We try to create an open space, so almost every wall has a window. That allows us to be more connected to the seasons, because you really can notice the transition between each season. And in the morning, for example, the sunlight catches our bedroom, and in the evening it is more in the living space when we are dining. So it's like huge paintings, and you can look through the entire house to all directions. Every window can fully open and fall away, which extends our living space during spring and summer. On the back side of the house, the north side, we have a small garden, which creates a cool environment throughout the whole day. And that is basically like natural air conditioning when you open up the door from the bathroom to that garden. And that also gives you the feeling of an outdoor shower and a small spa at home. I think it's very important to bring outdoor inside as well, and plants create a lot of oxygen. So we have a lot of plants in our space to create a healthy environment indoor. We only used organic grown plants, trees in our garden, organic soil, no toxins are used. We create a small pond to attract more wildlife. We have a lot of birds in our garden and some edible plants and flowers as well. In terms of energy use, we also wanted to make sustainable decisions. So we have 14 solar panels on the south side of the roof. We have a heat pump and we have green roofs, so the house is energy neutral. The whole process has been very empowering, because when you start building your own house, you have no idea what you're doing, and we learned so much in just a few years. I'm very grateful that we got to experience this.